Order for good news, can say I'm in a bro or Ghana to order for good news, Ben Abetudra. Sisia no, yesi the na appreciating no. Ama sisia inflation attitude to say who inflation had dropped by 13.7% of all. Good news, case mama is a John Dramani Muhammad. Why not you say? Just a coin of the first of my economy bounce back no and no you see I'm no casan ejebo eja enya ba baby you see. Inflation had dropped by 13.7%. This is a good news. I'm speaking in a bro. Our Ghana to for my call. Now I'm going to say when you know in Chemu. Our Ghana to remember this year.
For staying with us, we begin with the latest inflation figures. Inflation for June 2025 dropped by 4.7 percentage points from 18.4% to 13.7%. This represents the sixth consecutive drop year on year. The rate also marks the lowest since December 2021. Addressing the media at the June Consumer Price Index presser, government statistician Dr. Al-Hassan Idrisu attributed the drop to sustained monetary and fiscal policy gains.
The CPI for June 2025 was 257.3, down from 260.5 in May 2025. And up from 226.4 in June 2024. Year-on-year rate of inflation for June 2025 was therefore 13.7%, a 4.7 percentage point drop from the May 2025 inflation of 18.4%. This means that on the average, the prices of goods and services increased by 13.7% between June 2024 and June 2025. On month-on-month basis, there was a deflation of 1.2% for June 2025, implying that the general price level fell by 1.2% between May and June 2025. This means that Ghanaians paid less for goods and services in June than they did in May 2025. The June inflation we have just reported is a sixth consecutive year-on-year drop we've seen in inflation and is the lowest inflation in terms of year-on-year since December 2021.
All right, that was a government.
Order for when you want good news now, yes, Sunday the good Ghanatube mom, you see. This year now, I know Casano June way. June year just last month, you see inflation had dropped by 13.7% of four. Or say John Dramani Mahama or Bujuma Kessia Pan, you say. Order for you see the now I appreciate it against the dollar and no ama inflation had dropped by 13.7% of four. When you good news Kessia Babeto, you are beginning in our bro. Our Ghana to order for Mamu and Fisa mobile like no subscribe no share no notification bell so my for way good news Kessia and Ababeto just last month here June year we see inflation had dropped down by 13.7% for when you good news I'm beginning in our bro our Ghana to for my call 9 and 7 our Ghana to near this year.
Statistician, lead data analyst John Isaac Ofeji joins me in the studio to discuss this real significant drop. 4.7% sounds incredible, but that is what the government statistician is reporting. Break down the figures for us.
Well, so that if you see, this is the national value, which is around 13.7%. But if you break this down, you see that there are more than 10 regions with inflation above the national average, so 11 in total. So you could see that regions like the Bono, Volta, Oti, Ashanti, Western, Northern regions, and even the Upper West region having inflation as high as 32.3%. So although the national average is around 13.7%, you still have regions recording higher inflation rates. And all of these regions, all of these 11 regions are supposed to be the food basket of the country. So it simply means that structural issues still exist. And in fact, if you see the Greater Accra is falling below the national average 12.2%, is because it was one of the regions that really benefited from the that campaign to drive down prices, malls and promotions going in the Greater Accra region, and then also transport fares. What you see is that Greater Accra region was one of the regions that really benefited from that transport fares that was cut in the first quarter of the year. And so for me, I think if you look at the other breakdown, looking at the transport sector, which recorded a deflation of some 8.1%. When anything happens in the transport sector, it has that multiplier effect, and that is the reason why we are seeing that 13.7% inflation. So 8.5% deflation in the transport sector. I mean, hitherto you would have seen an upward, it will be amongst the top 5 or the top 3. But currently we are recording deflation at the transport aspect, and this would definitely affect other aspects of the
trending.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you look at even education, health, and others are all recording high inflation. Just look at non-food inflation rate, for instance, somewhere around 11.4%. But food inflation is still above the national average, in excess of 16%. That tells you that food is still very expensive, although we've seen the cedi gaining more than 20% against the dollar since the beginning of the year. We've seen fuel prices going down. Now the big question is, government is on the verge of implementing that 1 cedi additional levy on the export price of fuel. What will be the impact? Are we going to see the transport component of inflation reverting, coming into the inflation aspect? And what will it be? What would be the key impact on the main headline figure that we are seeing today? But I mean, the most important thing is that if you look at it on the national scale, this is the first time in a long time that we are recording somewhere around 13.7%.
I think this is a breakdown when it comes to food inflation.
Now, I mean, Darryl, if you look at this, just look at oils and fat, 9% inflation. All the others are recording deflation. And so you shouldn't be surprised if you see inflation coming down to 13.7%, simply because you see majority of what usually will drive inflation upwards or in the deflation zone. Water, for instance, is on the deflation trajectory. Soft drinks went down by some 1.5%. There's also milk and other dairy products also down. It's also cocoa drinks also down. Fruits and nuts, all of these things are down, and it explains why we are recording that low 13.7%. And so definitely, I mean, if you look at it on the national scale, where although we have that national average of 13.7, there are 11 regions still recording inflation rates above the national average. And if you look at a place like Upper West and Upper East regions,
I think the figure was 32.
And
5, I may be wrong, but it was in the 30s.
And in fact, these are supposed to be the food basket of the country. That's where we are supposed to produce and bring it to the capital. But one thing we know is that when you see producer price index coming down, it definitely will affect inflation. So I wasn't surprised, because I saw May producer price index and it was significantly very, very low to what we used to see last year and last 2 years. So I was expecting this significant drop, but not more than 4 percentage points. Is really, really key. And the key question is the Bank of Ghana going to follow suit and possibly do a rate cut? Some of the questions that investors, economic agents are asking.
Yeah, and you mentioned the 1 cedi fuel levy, which of course is going to be a subject for discussion on Beyond the Numbers.
Absolutely.
That's in just under an hour. Tell us what you'll be talking about.
Well, the president actually announced and has launched the 24-hour economy and accelerated exports development program. We are asking a very simple question. The 24-hour economy will actually run on the good wheels of a good energy sector. So the question is our troubled energy sector that we pay in excess of $1 billion, dollars to buy fuel. This year we are estimating that we could pay excess capacity or shortfalls close to about $2 billion. Do we have a strong energy sector to actually support the 24-hour economy? So we've got all the data, and we've got all the president said. He said the 24-hour economy is going to run on 8 pillars. But definitely, without energy, all of these 8 pillars would not run to where the government wants the 24-hour economy to go.
That's at the top of the hour, 2 p.m.
2 p.m. Yeah, I'm doing
Beyond
this.
the Numbers with Isaac Ofeji, Winston Taki, and Caleb Zibrim. Thank you so much for the update. We want to speak right now with Nelson Kwagweji, who is head of finance.
Odofo, when you good news, Kessia Betobia, Mr. Beginning in Abreu, El Ghanatube, Odofo, you say inflation, one John Dramani Mahama, Nisha, Pano, the buy, and inflation are dropping down by 13.7%. Odofo, when you good news, Kessia, Mr. Betobia, Mr. Beginning in Abreu, El Ghanatube, for Mamma, if you say, mobile like, no more subscribing, no more share, no more notification bonus, or mine, said a bear, I'll bring you a BBA, drop content, what an attempt, Pano, you need to, Odofo, aha, and I made in 7 in ABC, El Ghanatube, so my cramming,